Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's good to see you. Another week. Thanks for joining. Those who are going to be listening to the replay, thank you so much for your time and your efforts. Today, we want to start another 3-part series that is talking about the invisible weights. The invisible weights, unpacking. Those are the things that are weighing us down as leaders in our homes and in our community and also at work. Those inner things that we are not seeing. So I want to welcome you as you join. Thank you so much for joining. And for those who don't know who I am a Christian leadership, life and career coach. I'm also a motivational speaker. I am an best-selling author, and I'm also a coach for those who are completing their master's and doctoral dissertation degrees, among the many other hats that I carry. My name is Dr. Marcia Thomas, and I do a series every week that talks about leadership and life, those unconventional things and those hidden things that persons don't talk about. They are not usually brought to the surface. And I am a stickler for purpose as a Christian leadership coach. I help women over 40 who are leaders and men too, but I specialize in women leaders, female leaders who are carrying a lot for a very long time. And I help them to identify and also to understand and live their God-given calling profitably so they can spend quality time with their family. We're calling it balanced life, family, and career, and also do joyful work. So they are not overwhelmed and feel burnt out, frustrated, and feeling that they're giving everything and they're not getting anything back. I use what is called a free model in a program. So that is why I'm in a nutshell. And because of popular requests, I always prepare a little slide for you to use to guide you for when you go back and do your replay. Thank you for joining, Dr. Leslie. It's good to have you. And so I talk about today what's holding you back isn't always what others can see. And so I want you to agree or disagree in the discussion, even if you do the replay, something for you to think about. And you can either agree or disagree. And then when you go through the session, you can either alter or confirm your point of view. So we're talking about what's holding you back, the invisible that holds you back. That's it. And I say it isn't always what others can see. All right. So today I want to talk about, as I said before, I want to look at the hidden weeds. God says he wants us to prosper and be in health, just as your soul prospers. And this is in 3 John 2. All right. So as we look at it, good morning, Miss Karen. Thank you for joining. Yes, everyone, have a happy Tuesday. So, Dr. Leslie, you have agreed. Very good. So you agree, and let's see if you will change that as we go through the mandate. All right. Thanks so much for joining, Karen. It's so good to see you. And so I am talking about some hidden weights that leaders carry, and leaders in organizations, of course, leaders who are leading themselves and leaders who have a family. We are putting it all together because we are talking about leadership and life, and we're talking about the weights that we carry as we govern ourselves and as we may be placed in positions or roles or have responsibility to govern others, which would be our children or members of our workplace or a team. And so those internal limitations don't show up on paper. Those limitations that we're talking about, they are not visible on the paper. You don't write them down. These are the things that hold us back, that influence our decisions, our relationships, and opportunities, either for good or for bad. And if there are limitations, it means that they are things that hinder us, that delay us, that distract us, and that set us back. And what holds us back? Very good, Dr. Leslie, I'm agreeing with that. I was about to say it, maybe not in the way you're saying it, is the same for everyone. So we are really a reflection of one another, because what holds me back is embedded in another person, which is what I was going to say, and carries weight because it is nurtured through another person. And so we really want to understand that we are connected in different ways depending on who we rest. So some connectors pull us out, and some connectors dig us deeper. Thank you for joining. Thank you. All right, so we want to go now to what we want to consider as the hidden weights. What are these weights that hold us back? And there might be persons inside the chat who would want to give us some of them. But these are not physical disabilities. The weight that I want to discuss today and for the next two sessions coming forward are not physical disabilities. They are the patterns and the habits and the routines and the pressure and the pain points that quietly sabotage us and our leadership, sabotage our life, and sabotage our leadership. So let me repeat, they are not physical disabilities. They are not special needs. They are the patterns, the habits, the routines, the practices, the pressures, the pains that quietly sabotage our life and our leadership. And so the healthy soul, thank you, Karen, for this suggestion, is that this point, sorry, is the one that finds harmony between authenticity, purpose, and inner peace. It strives on self-awareness, gratitude, and meaningful connections. Well said. Well said. And so these are some key points that I want to show. And I want to show them so we learn from them. And as you do the replay, you actually see it coming up. So you learn from those important points that have been made. All right. So if it is not, what are some of, if it's not physical, and if it's really referred to your pain point, your pressure point, your practice points, your habits, and so on. What is it? The common invisible ones that I want to talk about today in this session, we'll move to others in the sessions following, are the imposter syndrome, the people pleasing and overcommitting of yourself. You're having to always prove your worth, thinking that you're not enough, and the syndrome that you are not qualified for a position that you worked hard for and that you have always been doing outside of your job description, and you have waited long and have been overlooked and undervalued for far too long, and you're finally getting to that place, and here you are thinking that allowing people to make you feel that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, and you're not hitting the mark, and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Let's talk about emotional exhaustion and burnout, where some of us who have our own business or are in our company, and there are persons that are above us or persons that are alongside us who are not throwing their weight, they are not meeting their deadlines, they are not showing up on time, but because of cronyism and nepotism, they get away with murder, and you are always having to work 10 times as hard to prove yourself. And so that's the problem. You become exhausted and you become burnout, and you're silently dying slowly, and you are not even aware, and others around you are not aware. And then there's a lack of cohesion with your soul, alignment, and purpose. And so your activities hold no meaning for you, and you are not able to function at your A game. And we talk about the misalignment, not knowing or obeying the call when you are told to move or told to do something different. And so those are the points I want to look at today. And I want to apologize because I'm not feeling as well as I want to today. So I want to my some of my clients have given me permission to share their situations. The names have changed, of course, for to protect their privacy, and the information has been professionally concised to do the what I wanted to do. So we are going to talk about Maria, a senior manager. Of course, I deal with women over 40, and she felt unworthy of her role, constantly overworking to prove herself because, of course, she was in a group that had mostly men. And there was also a situation, a culture, an informal culture that was really entrenched in that organization that dishonors women or disrespects women. And so she got the position and she got the mandate to change the status quo that is there. And so she felt unworthy because of the constant challenge of always having to prove herself. She didn't lack skill, she just lacked peace. And so what she did is that to avoid the critics and the consensus all times of drilling into her, she would over prepare for every minute meeting, stay up late hours of the night. She would double check with persons. She felt now that she had to be living under affirmation, and she felt that that was not her. That couldn't have been what God had wants for her. Of course, she's a Christian leadership. She's a Christian female leader, and she began to doubt herself very heavily. So all of what she thought she now began to question it at every go, and record everything that persons have an issue with the intention that, okay, I need to fix this, and if it's not fixed, she feels out of whack because it's really nothing that needs to be fixed. But there was now this kind of delusion that has come over her, this cloak that has been thrown on her, that she has to prove herself and she's not good enough. And so the invisible weight is that self doubt that we're talking about all the time. Leslie, that fear. And she masked it as diligence. So when she got into the session, we began to drill through it. We realized that her diligence was not because of her expertise, it was not because of her abilities. It's really because she had this thirst, this self-doubt in her that she needed to prove herself. And engaging in deep introspection through writing or meditation allows you to align with your core values and purpose. And we are coming to that as we look at some of these strategies. So feels unworthy, very much so, Dr. Leslie. The fear of criticism fueled her self-doubt, and tried to be more and more diligent. So the self-doubt and this fear of criticism was masked as diligence. Let me talk about another client that also gave me permission. Of course, as I said before, the name has been changed for privacy, and the information has been professionally concised for her privacy also. So she's a community organizer, she's a pastor's wife. She works in her community too, in the capacity of where she worked in the institution in which she worked, which I will not be naming here, but she worked, the institution allows her to organize events for workshops, for those types of things. That's where she's at, and also present and train. And she's also a pastor's wife. So she says yes to every request. Yes. So she leaves no room for rest or for her family because her identity was no longer hers. She didn't belong to herself. She gave away herself long ago. Give herself away to be used by anyone who she feels need or help. So she calls it servant leadership. But her body was calling for help. So she had so many issues. And when she got to the doctor, the physical aches, remember I told you a story how I myself had a lot of pains and aches and so on. And when I went to the doctor, they couldn't diagnose it. And someone said to me, it's not physical. It may be that you're under stress, or you have a toxic workplace, or you're in a toxic environment constantly and so on. So you're not sick. And so she discovered the invisible weight that was pulled off her is her guilt. which she disguised as service. Can't say no. Felt so guilty when she said no because they would criticize her in her community and they would criticize her as a pastor's wife. And that mainly was her issue. The pastor's wife was to be there for all persons and she support. So she was so concerned about serving her husband's position, making sure that nothing causes any reproach on him, forgetting that she was human and that she had an identity and that they were family members who also depended on her. And so when we were able to break down that guilt that was disguised as service and fuel her and align her with what is her purpose alongside the purpose that God has given her, alongside her husband and her family. And she clarified that. Then she got the freedom to really think and be herself while still carrying out her role. And the most important thing is that she was able to say no for very good reasons that were practical and rational enough that and got persons to understand that I can't. I made an appointment with my daughter. I have to take her to the dentist for her cleaning. I really can't. If you can allow me to do it at another time, or if you can wait until it's convenient for me. And she now was able to do that confidently without the guilt, without the guilt. So at this time, she wasn't so worried about what other people think about her, Dr. Leslie, but how much her saying no would affect her husband's ministry. So she was more concerned about securing her husband and making sure that his service, his roles, his responsibilities as a pastor was carried out, and that nobody could point to her and use it against him. So that's really what was the digging down into that. All right. And that in itself is a terrible weight. So we are looking that guilt or shame is one of the weights that we carry as leaders in our home or in our workplace. And we also carry the fear of criticism or the fact that we are not, we don't feel worthy. So we overcome it, we give that service. All right. So let's talk about Cheryl. She was 47 and she led a nonprofit. But because of the constraints of the finance constraints and so on, as she started out, she had she felt she had to do it all. And she got this perfectionist trait that to prove to everybody that she could do it, it must be done at a certain level, a certain excellent point that stood out, make it stand out above her competitors and so on, or persons that she was serving. So she was so concerned about giving a particular type of service. And so if there was any default, any minor error, anything as simple as dotting an I or a T, it would freak her out. And so she had that invisible weight, the fear of not being good enough, of having to be proving herself in a non-profit. And this is the fear of judgment by the community, by her family members who didn't want her to start the non-profit, who felt that she was putting too much of herself and her resources in. The donors who were relying on her to prove, so it's non-profit, but they were donors. And she had a hard time making an error or a mistake or feeling that she could rest. And that's told her peace a lot because she had a serious fear of judgment by a community of destiny helpers, donors, family members, those who felt she shouldn't have, those who feel that she should have, but not at that time, those who felt that she was not ready, and it created a lot of issues surrounding what persons would be thinking of her and the fact that she might just be a failure too. It might fail. And were they right? She didn't want to prove them right. She didn't want anybody to tell her I told you so, and so on. All right. So I want to share another, which is Faith. She was a 50, a pastor's wife and coach, and she was a professional certified licensed coach. But for some reason, she kept giving, and I think I know why. As I say, I don't want to give the details, but she ignored herself and the fact that she was getting depleted and so on. Until her joy disappeared, she became disengaged, disconnected, and very disillusioned. And it is a hard thing when you get to that point. It's hard to pull yourself back, especially if you're in a setting where persons are not understanding that you are experiencing chronic fatigue or a silent burnout, because the expectations are still very high, and persons tend to, and I speak from experience, tend to criticize you also when you are a little disconnected, because you had set the bar so high that now missing just one of those bars, people don't look to say that something might be wrong. They look to say that that's not you. You need to step up back. You're falling behind, and there's this pressure to keep the pace. And that is what happened to her. So she silently burnt out. She became disengaged. She lost her joy. She lost her purpose and her reason, and that affected her badly. All right. So let's go now with Dinah, which is my last example. She was promoted, a promotion that she sought for long and hard. But as she got the promotion, each time she was promoted, because she found herself being very competitive, doing her best, and also achieving all sorts of accolades and awards and achievements that set her apart as very exceptional. But she felt emptier and emptier at each step. Her job really looked successful. She appeared to be out there up and about, but she didn't feel like it was a calling anymore. And so, as we pulled and dug into it, we found that her invisible weight was the success without soul alignment. She Her soul was not in sync with what she was doing. So she was very good at her role, but she was not fulfilling her purpose. And she kept feeling that in her heart that something was wrong. And that prompting, she paid attention to it. She listened keenly, and she transitioned into she transitioned into her purpose. Luke 1, not being a prophet in your own home, prophet prophet, but prophet pun there is nice and lovely. I had to put that up there, Dr. Leslie, because it's in Luke 1, 4 verse 1. Yes, not being good enough in your own. So what are the signs that you're carrying these invisible weight? You constantly second guess yourself. Capable, very capable, know what you're about, have proven yourself over and over, but here you are now second guessing yourself. You're wondering if you did the wrong thing. Keep wondering. You feel that you're in a phase where you're not so sure anymore. Not so sure anymore, because you have been gaslighted because of who is around your team, who is your supervisor, who are your colleagues, and so on. And you have been criticized, you have been dragged. You want to please everybody and you can't. And then there's this fear of slowing down, because you feel that if you rest, if you pause, if you do self-care or soul care, you're gonna fall behind, and that's not so. And you feel that terrible guilt of not saying yes, even though saying yes is obvious to the blind that it would kill you at this point. But you're still in between a rock and a hard place, because you feel right now that you need to be saying yes, and so you have to be careful. Now, this one is the one that many persons miss, and I am so sorry that I have to talk about it, and I'm going to expand on it so much. A few of these in the next two sessions. Envy, that is master's ambition. You can't be satisfied with other people's success. You always feel that you have to be besting them. And I had an experience the other day, and I some years ago, sorry, but I highlighted it to one of my clients the other day, that there was someone in my organization that fought and fought and fought to get the position that I was in, and felt that she could do what I was doing, and got the position, and got so angry because God just moved me along a little above, a little ahead. But the person got so angry because here was the point in which they felt that, yes, we are now on par, we are together. and I didn't even realize that that person was in competition with me because I was just busy about doing my own little business, enjoying my own little life, and worrying about my many, many problems that I have. I never thought about it like that until it occurred. And so, envy masters ambition is a terrible thing because it will burn you out. Because your ambition that is constantly comparing yourself with others will wear you down. Because what is it that you desire for yourself? What is it that you really want? What resonates with you? Is it every profession that somebody has, or every car that they are driving, or every house that they build? So you're going to constantly be building something or adding on to your place, or changing your car and changing your look to in yourself measure up. You have to be guarded about that, because that in itself is unusual. When we act from fear and doubt, our nervous system remains on high alert. Huh? Think we have to post this stress response becomes chronic. And I believe that with all my heart, depleting your mental clarity, emotional resistance, and physical well-being. Doubt erodes confidence very much so. Doubt, a rocking chair that takes you nowhere. When it meets with worry, it becomes a very toxic pill, a deadly dose when it is combined with worry. And I'm not saying that we can't doubt ourselves, because sometimes the doubt that comes from the other side of fear can make you do what you take risks. So we are not here, Karen and Dr. Leslie and myself, we are not here discounting fear or doubt. What we're saying is that it must not control you. You must control it. You must put it in its proper perspective, and it must become your ally. It can't. Yes, it can't. But very good point, Karen. Thank you so much for that point. And it's a very, 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 very resonant point. Yes, Dr. Leslie, I recognize. But it did give me something to think about, because the profit, as I said, with the pun there is very good, extremely good. Because if you are at the point where you're carrying these invisible weights, then you cannot profit anybody in your own home. PROFIT. There's no profit. And I'm joining with that. So there's no profit to yourself, and there's no profit to others, because of course of the fact that you're now under some stress, you are not sleeping right, you lack mental clarity, your performance is declining, your emotional resilience is out of whack because you are disillusioned, disgruntled, and disengaged, and your physical well-being takes a toll, because you might just be getting migraine headaches and aches and pains that are out there. And so your nervous system being on high alert comes from not from these heavyweights that prevents you from being profitable. PROFITABLE to yourself. And that's what I help the 40 Christian leaders to do. Find their calling, find their purpose, and turn it into a profitable calling. And now I find that this desire is increasing in females, especially when they lose their jobs. Because I got a statistic the other day that was very alarming, where there were more females being laid off than males. And I think that's very alarming, especially for single mothers, or for persons in their homes that have people, generations depending on them, like their grandparents or their parents. And that's frightening for many of them, and they are seeking a way out, and they are seeking ways out under great duress, with their nervous system being on high alert, carrying, because of the fear, the constant fear and uncertainty. And so I appreciate those 2 points. All right, we want to now look at avoidance of stillness or rest. When we refuse to take a break, we pile on more certificates, we pile on more roles, we take on additional jobs, and it's not working out. Our children are not seeing us. They are taking on choices, they are taking on habits, they are resenting us when we are at home. We have become strangers. We are in a house where somebody's using their cell phone upstairs to send us a message down in the kitchen. We're not to allow it. When we are at home, we are to spend quality time with our family. And you can't be so busy that at home you're doing the same thing that you would do to a community member or somebody at church where you would send a message, or someone at your workplace that you would give a notification. No, your family must spend quality time, and you must insist on it by your habits and the patterns and the routines that you carry, because that in itself will now become division in your home, lack of communication, lack of knowing each other, lack of appreciation will now become an invisible weight that is added to the other weights that you carry as a leader. Because by virtue of becoming a leader, you take on some of those invisible weights. So I want to put in a spoiler alert here that these habits that I just described, these habits of envy that is masked as ambition and all of those things, are not just habits, they are very much signs that you are out of whack. You are out of whack. You are out of rhythm with your life and leadership. And that's it, because I been there, done that, and because I've expressed it in my book, A Leader Like You, and another that is coming out that I will begin to promote very soon. I'm waiting on the review. And these things I don't advertise anymore. But because some of these books you pick them up, I want to now get into the PDF where persons are able to get them directly without going through those types of systems and so on, because it's sometimes it's fatiguing for them. The purchase, they have to have an account, all sorts of things that persons are complaining about. So I'm looking at fixing some of those things. Thank you so much, Marcia Watson, for joining us, and thank you for your affirmation. Good. We try to help each other in our different sessions. Karen has a lovely session on Sundays, on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Dr. Leslie also has a session on Monday, and Friday is extremely good, and Monday. So please don't miss those. And I'm here on a Tuesday and on a Thursday sometimes with Tanique. All right. So what are some reconnection habits? How do you heal from these disabilities, leadership and life disabilities? You want to embrace soul rest over hustling. So you want to find what resonates with your soul. You want to dig into that. So even if you're starting from somewhere and a role that might not be the desirable role, you want to understand what your purpose is so you can tie that into your purpose. I help persons to identify their spiritual gifts and how it aligns with their purpose. So you do your audit and we put it all together based on your patterns and your habits, your unique gifts and talents that are identified from your audit and from your testing. Some persons require another little test, so I put them onto the third range. But once that is over, you get to a basic understanding of your purpose, and then you join that 3 weeks program, so you become very free. You embrace the free model, and there is more success after a 90-day period. And some persons might bloom before, depending on where you are after you do your purpose audit. And so you need to embrace that soul rest over hustle. And that's one of the ways that ties you in there. You get your purpose packed in. And I am happy to say that there are persons who I have a client that came to me. She did a 1 month program. At the time, I had a 1 month program, and that's how I discovered that it had to be more than a month. And so she was one of my first clients among that lot of first clients. And when she came, she wanted to, her dream in another 5 years was to really open a business, more than one. But she was bent on one. Of course, I have to keep that in. I didn't ask her permission. But after she did the month, she recognized that when she identified the purpose and how it aligned to her gift and talent, she recognized that some of the things that she was doing now, she had to just reframe them and organize them. So instead of doing the 5 years, she opened the 2 businesses in 1 year. Very successful, very, very successful. And I am integral in how she actually frames that out. She uses me as one of her guides or mentors. And I'm so happy at all times when they do so well. I feel so much joy. She gave me some good news last week, and tears came out of my eyes. And she said, "That's exactly why I responded, Doc, because I'm so happy When you find your purpose, it doesn't mean that there are not challenges and the issues do not come up. But it is joyful work because you understand where God is leading you. You understand what delays mean, and you know that you will reap a harvest from the delay because the timing. And I always remember the story that Leslie talks about the timing with her book. That was such a perfect. It took her so a certain amount of time, but when that thing resonated with me when she said she knew the time was not right, but she just did the preparation, and when the time was right, here it was, and it came out so rich. The video trailer was it's so good. I keep looking at it, and the things that are blooming from that are so awesome because we understand timing when we embrace soul rest over hustle. And you just need to revisit your calling and know your why, which is what I'm saying. When you know your why, it changes your outcome, it changes your ministry, and it changes your life. But this change serves, inspires, and grow others because your purpose is not designed for you. It is designed for service to others. So you want to understand that service is the result of purpose. Service. And you want to set boundaries without guilt. You are created to do everything, anything, but you can't do everything. And there are some persons that you are not sent to serve. And so if you keep pouring you into that calling, you put your purpose into dormancy and you delay your effort and you become very frustrated. You become very disengaged, disillusioned, and many times you become very tired of everything because you're not supposed to be where you are. Another way to reconnect with your habits is to seek coaching or spiritual counsel. And coaching is very important. It's a valuable thing. It's not prescriptive either. It's very dynamic because we pull from you what is inside of you. We help to give you clarity, and we help you to refocus intentionally, and we are there for you, supporting you, and all the steps that you have discovered as you go through are right for you. And so that's the difference between certain disciplines prescribe, and then they give you the solutions. We help you to find the solutions inside of you, and so you become master of your own destiny. That's what I do as a coach. Allow you, support you in becoming a master of your own destiny, to change your income and to change your life, to become to fall into your profitable calling and have joyful work, so you can give honor to God as you serve others, because that's the ultimate. And you want to prioritize your mental health and spiritual check-ins. Whatever costs you your peace is too expensive. That's really the bottom line. If it is costing your peace, it is too expensive. You are to recognize and shed the invisible weights holding you back to unlock your full potential. So the question I want you to reflect on as I pull down, what I want you to ask is, which weight do you need to surrender today from what I have identified here? Which weight do you need to surrender today? Whatever you surrender is not putting you behind. It doesn't make you late. It's just nudging you into joyful, freedom, profitable calling. A joyful, free, profitable calling is what it's calling you into. Whatever weight you need to share, because sometimes we feel that when we let go of these weights, we are letting go of our life and of our opportunity. But you sometimes, and I saw it somewhere, I think it's from Prit, and she says we have to choose sometimes to become uncomfortable with comfortable. We have to choose sometimes to become very uncomfortable with comfortable. And so seeking external validation is exhausting. Very true, Karen. I agree. And trying to prove your worth means that we are relying on external approval instead of internal alignment, which is really where I push persons to find what is the core inside, your soul alignment. Once you find your soul alignment, you'll get peace. And that part is also emphasized in a different way on Fridays in Leslie's session. The more we chase validation, the more disconnected we feel from our true self, very much so. As against choosing service. We are to choose service over validation, very much so. Joyful work over validation. We are not to focus so much on the performance or on the big wins. We are the soul alignment is so important. The service to others is so important. Changing lives and outcomes are so important. Allowing persons to become masters of their own destiny is so important. Growing, inspiring, and impacting people is the sum total of purpose for every single one. And the weights are the same for everyone. So it either fear is either having fear, the fear of criticism or judgment. We're going into all of that. The fear of failure, the fear of poverty, and some people fear being alone. And leadership puts you alone, especially when you're doing the right thing, because the right thing is not popular. All right. So we want to look at how we are now thinking about. So I want you to think about it. Do you honor your human limits? Do you know what your limits are and how to curtail them and build on them to wheel and come again, to pivot? Do you practice discipline digital boundaries? Do you get up on notifications or instead of meditations? Because you need to meditate, you need to seek the kingdom of God and everything will be added unto you. You need to seek wisdom from God. You need to lean on God and not trust on your own. So when you get up on notifications, you set yourself up for failure. Just set yourself up to succumb to criticism, to fear and doubt and the judgments and worry. You set yourself up because the notifications can become your trigger. And that trigger carries consequences for you. It can take away your soul peace and put your nervous system on high alert. You have to be very guarded. And so you have to make sure you keep out those things that you're not to let in. And you're letting those things that you're to let in, but at the time when they are to come in. Because sometimes we are in the deep blue sea, and even though we can swim, we have gotten so tired that we drown. So we want to make sure that we are out there at the proper time. Have you learned how to separate calling and performance? Or are you stuck on external validation? Yes, which is so exhausting. Trying to prove your worth, trying to please everybody, and trying to overcome it and so on because of guilt. Do you learn how to separate that? Because that is something you need to think about. How do you strive in that? You want to reflect deeply now. What's draining you and what fuels you? You want to choose what fuels you and not what drains you. Who is fueling you or who drain you? You want to put those boundaries out there. You want to reset them. And sometimes they are your family members and can be anybody too. It can be your spouse draining you, it can be your children and so on, because you're not putting it into perspective, because you don't want to say no, the guilt that you're to be there for them at all times and so on, instead of being there for yourself. So you can give what you have and not be always striving to give what you don't have. So when you're able to reflect deeply and see what drains you and what fuels you and put that in perspective and put them in order, you always work from an overflow and not from an overwhelm. And so you want to ask, where am I off course from my God given calling? Because sometimes we make people and things become our idols when it really should be that we're worshiping God. So those things are so important. We think we can't do without them or do without these persons. And we find that they couldn't care a hoot. And so you want to put that in perspective. So you return to obedience of what it is that you're supposed to be doing and do what you're called to do, what you're created to do, and solve the problem you were created to solve. And then you want to rebuild your inner strength through your soul practices, meditation, listening to the promptings, and doing all of what Karen had suggested at the top here that we do. And we want to make sure that we do that so that we are not acting out of fear. So you want to engage in your deep introspection through your writing or your journaling or your meditation. So you can align yourself and your soul with your core values and your purpose. And this will give you clarity. Full agreement. All right, so let's go now with the key takeaways because we're ending. And still thanking those who have joined since we have started the program. Thank you so much for taking the time. There's a replay. You can replay. And for those who are watching on YouTube, I appreciate you too, please. I want it to be clear. So you may look successful on the outside, key takeaway, but inside you may be wrestling with self-doubt, burnout, and fatigue. And sometimes the strongest leaders are secretly the most tired. And that's no joke. We want to be clear. Your weakness doesn't disqualify you, it prepares you for divine support. And we see that in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, where God says, your strength is perfect, your strength. My strength will perfect your weakness. He tells you that you that is where you ought to be, and that is what is to happen. You understand me? So God doesn't need perfection. He needs your surrender. And God honors an honest surrendered leadership. And we want to be clear. God wants you to fill out the gaps. He wants you to tell him what the gaps are. And he wants to be able to fill those gaps with his knowledge. I was confused for a long time about purpose. Then one day I realized it's one thing and it's the same for all of us. Oh my Lord, service. I agree with you because that's what I think. It's the rent that we pay for our life here on earth. I think so. Service is the rent we pay for the space we occupy on this earth. Service. I am in full agreement with you. It's the same for all of us, service. The same, and I'm repeating that because I'm right there. It takes courage to stop performing and start healing, and transformation starts with self awareness. But healing begins when you act. So today, let today be your turning point. What do I mean by that? If this conversation resonated with you, then you want to do your challenge. And if you, in your overwhelm moments, is a challenge I'm giving you, take at least 30 minutes to step back, assess what is happening, reflect on it, reset, and realign. And I say take at least 30 minutes because you can't take 5 minutes. When you are to act in a crisis, that's different when you are acting in from a crisis point where decisions have to be made quickly and so on. But when you feel overwhelmed, because those are some invisible, because of the invisible weights, you want to be able to identify what's the invisible weight that is pressing on you at this time. What is draining you? What is it that you need to let go of? Who do you need to embrace? Who do you need to collaborate and partner with to make the change, to change this outcome, to change this situation? And it gives you the time to, when you step back and you take that 30 minutes, you are able to assess, reflect, reset, and realign, because your brain cannot work, as Karen has indicated, when you're tired, when you're mentally fatigued, or you're confused, or you're distracted. Neither can your brain function efficiently, and your thoughts and your body, when you are actually, when your nervous system is constantly on high alert. We have to be careful. And so this is the one of the steps I want you to take. This is your challenge for this time. And so if the conversation resonated with you, I also invite you to take another step, and that is to book your Soul Sync strategy session, where we can work together to realign your leadership, your calling, and your soul health for sustainable impact. We can relieve some of that weight that you're carrying. And I gave some examples that might be common to other people. And if you're not quite ready, as I said before, do your purpose alignment audit, do your spiritual gifts test, and have that little session, that free session where we can actually talk and define your next steps, so you can begin to be free and joyful and lighter in your life and in your leadership. So you shed some of that weight. Thank you so much for listening. May your Tuesday be peaceful, intentional, and purpose filled. Have a great day. Thank you for joining, Lisa. I saw you there. Come in. Thank you, Dr. Leslie and Karen, for your suggestions. And thank all of you who joined on YouTube. God bless and have a great day, everyone.